Welcome to Yes versus No, the podcast where, everyone takes the big questions and tries to answer them, and they put a lot of time into the big questions, but no one puts enough time into the little questions. I'm talking the yes and no questions.
These are the questions that aren't even worth our while.
No, these are questions that are so worth our while that people just flippantly ignore them.
Oh, okay. Well, so we're gonna bring light to the fact that there are questions that we just glaze over and then we just ignore them. But what we're
Yeah,
actually saying is they need time to be answered. Is that what you're saying?
exactly. People by definition just give yes or no answers to these questions. They rarely explain their decision behind the yes or the no. They just flippantly throw out an answer, and we don't know where that's coming from. Maybe they've had a bad day. Maybe they're throwing a yes when they really would have thrown a no. Had they given it a bit of time, a bit of a thought process, something to really, get like their teeth deep into. Like, for example, here's a yes versus no question. Well, we should introduce ourselves.
I was just thinking that
at some point.
yeah.
We're not just nobodies. I think we're pretty well versed in most topics, and we'll be able to answer these questions with a lot of intelligence, a lot of thoughtfulness. My name's David Teak. Just my credentials. I'm a published author, a successful businessman. I have a degree in economics. I've traveled extensively. And then, would you like to?
And then over here we have Nick Day, who I'll rattle off my credentials. I have a Bachelor of Communications in Commercial Radio, so some would argue that qualifies me to be able to speak on microphone, even though that was never part of my qualification.
So you're not trained to use a microphone?
No, I am. Like, there's a background in radio, but I'm not going to...
This is a podcast.
I understand. So podcasts have completely different rules compared to radio, so no one is actually filtering and monitoring what we're saying. We can defame and swear our asses off, and there is no way they can get us in trouble for this.
We are in control of our own destiny.
If we did something very stupid and Muhammad comes to mind, we may get in trouble. We're not going to do that. We're not insulting anyone.
Well, I don't think we should take off the table the prospect of intentionally insulting someone.
Well, if this goes to court, and this is evidence, I'm putting it down right now that we're going to do a podcast in court of the proceedings. So if we're getting sued, we're going to bring our recording equipment to court and we're going to record the whole thing as a podcast, so that no one is out of the loop in anything that goes on in these proceedings.
Yes, I mean, I think we can all think back to the famous legal case of Donald versus Sutherland, where a man named Donald was sued by a man named Sutherland.
And no relation whatsoever to the actor Donald
Sutherland.
No,
I see where you're getting that from.
Yeah.
There is an actor named Donald Sutherland.
Yeah, no relation.
But no, in the legal field, the Donald versus Sutherland case was very famous. It was the case where a man was sued for talking about Muhammad, and Muhammad himself sued him.
But did Muhammad appear in this court case?
Yeah, well, he called himself Sutherland, but he claimed that he was Muhammad.
Right. So why does Muhammad have to take on a pseudo personality in order to represent himself in public? It seems very misleading.
That is an issue for the courts to decide.
Oh. So wait, how did this court case go down? Who won?
It turned out Donald was allowed to say whatever he wanted to about Sutherland.
Oh, right.
Because it was just a podcast and there's no rules.
Okay. Well, there you go. Good on Sutherland for giving it a crack. But
this brings up a yes or no question for me.
That ties right in with the theme of the show. I really like that.
Is the sky the limit?
Well, we were discussing this earlier and basically trying to G ourselves up for the podcast. And do you know what? I'm not convinced that the sky is the limit. Because what's outside of our stratosphere? There's the ionosphere. I may be getting this in the wrong order. No, I'm getting the exact right order.
No, that sounds correct to me.
Stratosphere, ionosphere, and then the outer atmosphere. That'll do. And then you're in space. And then what's after that is just infinite abyss. But the infinite abyss is the limit, not the sky.
But is it depends what limits we're talking about. For example, the sky might be the limit a balloon can ascend to.
Well, I like to think of it this way: the outside forces affecting that balloon as like it's a helium-filled balloon, I assume.
Not necessarily.
Well, okay, well then it's limited
If we're
by its
talking
own
about
ability to float. I mean,
if we're talking about the entire universe, there might be some form of gas or element that we could put inside a balloon within our atmosphere that could cause the balloon to ascend, which is not actually helium.
okay, we're filling it with hydrogen, a very volatile gas,
Flammable.
flammable, very volatile. In fact, the Hindenburg filled with hydrogen, and that's what caused it to go boom.
And it was a cigarette smoker on the Heidenberg that lit it on fire.
Well, what's the famous picture I've seen so many times of it crashing into some sort of tower? I always had this thought in my head that that's exactly what happened. It crashed into a tower and just blew up.
No, well, they used to park them on top of skyscrapers. The poles on top of those early skyscrapers were there to attach Zephyrs to. Is it Zephyrs? No,
I think they're
I'm
called
thinking of Zeppelin.
Zeppelins.
Zephyr is
The Red Hot Chili Peppers
song,
reference.
but it's a light gust of wind is a zephyr.
So could my Zephyr push your Zeppelin?
No,
It could. Why
I
not?
think Zeppelins were powered by propellers.
Ah,
Or
but if what
propelled by
but-
propellers, even. You could say powered, but I think propelled is probably a better word.
okay, propelled, propowered, whatever.
But I believe the Hindenburg blew up because a man ignored the no smoking signs in the bathroom and put the cigarette down into the toilet, which was used to just flush it out into the environment. It was just, if you were in like New York City, every now and then you'd just be sprayed and you go, Zeppelin.
That's what happens in New York all the time, isn't it? They're pretty filthy.
Well, most of it now goes through a sewerage system. But
Oh.
back in the day, the Zeppelins would just pump it out into the city. A similar thing happened in Chicago when a band named the Dave Matthews Band accidentally released their toilet sewage system while going over a bridge, and the entire waste landed on a tourist ferry boat.
Oh, delicious.
Yeah, that is what some people said at the time. I believe the Dave Matthews Band were a bit embarrassed,
Okay.
but unlike the Dave Matthews Band, Zephyrs, when you did that, you risked lighting the whole fucking thing on fire.
So what you're saying is that a smoker caused one of the greatest accidents of all. Actually, no, it's probably not the greatest accident of all time. It's pretty notable.
It's
but,
notable.
But the only thing that brings me to right now is that shouldn't all smokers have some sort of detrimental fate coming to them if they in fact smoke? Smoking's such a filthy habit.
Well, if I'm to quote an expert on the topic, a man that I know who has smoked a long time, who I won't name him because we haven't invited him on the show. He can speak for himself if
Okay,
he'd like to
alright.
come on to the show. But as he told me one time that smokers do not actually die younger from cigarette smoking. That's a myth. And then he went on to say, plus they don't spend more time in hospital than others because they die young, which clears up hospital space. So the science isn't certain yet. Is basically what I'm saying.
No, it doesn't seem like it. Given that rock solid endorsement for smoking, I don't think it is. No.
Like for example, many of the people who died on that Zeppelin disaster that we're speaking of weren't smokers.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying, is that one smoker had such an effect on many people, and therefore, obviously, I'm assuming he died in this incident.
I would guess that he was probably among the dead.
Well, hopefully he was incinerated, because, he enjoyed flaming things so much. But
Imagine if he's not and he sues us. Imagine going to court for a podcast. That'd never happen.
Do you know what? That's kudos to us. If we can bring in that kind of demographic, he'd be like, I don't know, he'd be probably 80 at the least by now. If we can pull in that kind of demographic, I think we're doing well, and I invite him to sue us. But what I was getting at...
Yeah, we'll invite him on the show. He's
Okay.
welcome anytime he wants.
We'll pen it down in the diary. Next week's guest.
Yes, well, we'll look up to see if he's survived. And if he is alive, I mean, there's a chance he survived the disaster and is dead still.
Well, yeah, there's always that possibility. But then the question that I'd like answered, if that is the case, is what was his cause of death? tragedy would strike again, surely in another vehicle. Given the statistics.
In a car crash, you suspect,
Mm.
or
Perhaps it was also as catastrophic. Probably not to the same extent, but if he had died in a car accident, I think that's maybe playing on a little bit of irony.
that could be ironic. What about a helicopter crash? Another
Yeah.
advanced form of technology that didn't even exist, I believe, when his original disaster nearly took him
Well,
from
no,
this
no, no. I have
world.
to pull you up there because a helicopter has been around for a while. Leonardo da Vinci designed the first helicopter way back in the day. I
Yes.
think it was like the 16th, 17th century or something. He designed the
Yes, but
first
his
helicopter.
helicopter, I don't think he could fly more than 10 or 20 kilometers in it. It wasn't
It
really
was people
practical.
powered. Like you had to
Yeah,
pedal.
you pedaled it, and everyone used to say, "Oh, there goes old Leo flying his contraption around
That'll
again."
never take off.
Now, there's a pun. It'll never take off. Yeah, people, but it wasn't really practical in terms of a getting around method because there were no parking spots for him yet.
Well, I think, maybe that's another thing we can pull into this. The sky's the limit. It's like if we can harness this exponential power of the sky, is this not one of the greatest problem solving methods for the parking space issue in Sydney? I hate having to drive around and try and find a parking space. And they charge you for it, like
But it can
up
be
in the sky.
frustrating.
This could be the best idea in the world. If we could get people up in the sky, I'm not talking skyscrapers, but somehow have their cars park in the sky,
Maybe like just a long pole, and you like tie your car to it, maybe with a pulley system,
and they may be
and it
floated by
drags it up.
no, they'd be floated by hydrogen or helium balloons.
Helium is less flammable.
Well, helium is an inert noble gas, so it won't do anything. It doesn't react at all.
It can be fun to breathe.
Oh, it can. It definitely can. But in the sense of causing a smoker to come to his untimely death, not. Well, no, that's not true. Because if a smoker, although they have some breathing issues already, if a smoker breathed in enough helium, he could trick his own brain to believe that he's still got shitloads of oxygen in his system, and therefore his brain would tell him, you don't need to breathe, you're fine. And then he would choke to death on helium because his brain told him not to breathe.
So you're saying
That's a real thing.
you're saying the real enemy is the human brain.
I think the human condition is the true enemy here.
Well-
Only because, humans are the ones that are documenting all this. We don't see animals with cave paintings and what have you. But because humans have the compulsion to try different things and write them down, people are constantly pushing the envelope to try and see, what else can I do? What else can I do? And if the person that did something did it so well that they didn't write it down, in this case, it is breathing in. Like the first person to do this didn't document it.
The first person to
To
die,
breathe in enough helium to
for
kill
their
themselves.
brain to tell them not to breathe anymore.
That's right. So basically, we're going to keep.
And do we know for sure they didn't document it?
I know they didn't because they died, but someone else in the room could have. So they learnt from their mistake.
So the brain can kill you, but it can also learn from that death.
I hope so. Well, once you're dead, I'm not going to get into a religious or philosophical element here, but I believe once you die, you're dead. So you can't do anything else anyway. So if your brain or your soul or whatever part of your body can progress to another being or can do anything other than rot in the ground, perhaps it will learn.
Which brings us to another point: is when you're dead, can you go beyond the sky?
Well, I think some of us can, although if we are to believe the teachings of the Lord, a lot of us aren't going to, because I can't deny I've led a life of sin. I may go to hell, and from everything we've been told, hell is down.
Hell is definitely down.
Although, if you listen to, I was having an argument with a priest, and the priest was telling me that heaven isn't necessarily up in the clouds, and it's not necessarily a life of pleasure and what have you. It's just the existence of your being while God is around. And people living in hell aren't necessarily thrown into fire and brimstone with the devil with a pitchfork, and that is just that they aren't allowed to exist on the same plane where God is, and forever in envy of the people who did live a pure life and therefore could be with God.
But to counterpoint that priest,
Oh no, I told him he was a cunt, and I told him God was a cunt as well. So I counterpointed him very well.
My counterpoint was going to be you can't have flames without oxygen, and you can't have oxygen.
It's that triangle. You need fuel, oxygen, and you need an ignition.
All things that, if are in hell, which I'm pretty sure they are. I've seen paintings from great artists, Leonardo da Vinci, I
A
believe.
popular man on this show.
I believe he painted many hellfire type of paintings, and he invented the helicopter. So if we can't trust his opinion on hell, who can we trust?
Well, you know what? I can prove that the helicopter exists, and
So you're saying that by proving the helicopter exists, you're also proving
that
the
hell
existence of
exists.
hell,
Yeah,
and and by proving that to have fire, which we know to exist in hell,
it does exist.
that we need those three elements: oxygen,
Oxygen, ignition,
ignition,
and
and
fuel source.
fuel source. That hell is without a doubt on Earth.
Well, that's saying that there isn't those three elements and helicopters down under the ground. Because well, what comes from under the ground? We've got magma. It's like
Magma,
lava. Lava once it's above the surface.
iron ore
Iron ore.
sometimes
But
comes from under there.
superheated iron ore.
Worms.
Worms definitely live under the ground. I've seen them before. Although here's a funny one: ants. Okay? This is a really good point. Ants, as far as I'm aware, they don't have any space programs. They're quite limited in their geographical locations to the ground.
Very strong for their
Very,
size.
very strong. You know, God didn't hate them completely. They were given a bit of super strength. But for an ant, is the sky the limit, or is the ground the limit?
Or do ants go to hell?
Well, that's assuming that because there's fire ants. Remember,
There are.
fire ants, are they already not in hell?
There were those little orange and black ones that used to bite us when we were kids.
I remember bull ants as we were kids. They were like the ones with the big, mean, menacing, fuck off ones with the blue tail.
Yeah.
And if you got bitten by one of them, it was the worst pain in the world.
And then there were those caterpillars that were like fiery too.
Okay, when we were kids, we honestly believed that they spat fire and acid and that they would hurt you if they touched you. Therefore, we never touched them.
Yes.
So I want to know. And
I just touched them.
Really?
It fucking hurt.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I touched a few of them.
Oh, what? Wait. Okay. Why did you touch a few of them if you already found out it hurt once?
Because everyone else wouldn't touch them.
Oh, so you were the trendsetter, or
No,
trying to be
no.
the trendsetter.
No, I would do it by myself.
I was going to say you were the fearless trendsetter, and it took a few times to try and set them on the right path to touching them.
I used to also eat a lot of dirt, and I did that by myself too.
I've heard there's really good nutritional value in dirt. Sometimes, even when women are pregnant, bearing with child, they will crave to eat the earth.
Really? Good source of foliates?
And sometimes foliage.
Foliage?
Puns.
Is it still foliage if it's under the ground?
Well, no, I was just assuming that it was just like leaves and stuff that have fallen off trees laying on the ground, more of like a je ne sais quoi coating. What do you call it? Like a decoration or some sort of accoutrement to the dirt that you're about to consume.
Accoutrement.
Yeah.
You don't hear that on MasterChef often enough.
No, but then again, I don't watch MasterChef.
I've never watched this show.
So the times that I would hear it would be very rare indeed.
So these pregnant ladies, they eat this dirt, and then
apparently there's minerals and nutrients in the soil that they really want to get to, and it's meant to be good for the baby. But okay, when I was a kid, we were always dissuaded from trying to eat anything that touched the ground. So my first thought is, why are these women compelled to want to eat the soil when later on in life, especially in the life of the child that they've got in their stomachs, in their wombs, in their wombs, not stomachs, that they're going to try and tell those children not to eat from the ground? Why would they eat from the ground themselves?
The very food source that formed their entire being. Like they would
sperm. Was it, sperm.
No. Well, sperm. I will admit, sperm contributes to the birth process.
Oh, it's only half of it, I'm sure.
But
half.
In terms of the actual growing of the baby, it's really the dirt that you're eating, the vegetables and that grew in dirt, and the animal life that ate stuff that grew in dirt.
And
It's really
died in the dirt, and then
died
was
in the
therefore
dirt.
turned into more dirt.
It's all from
and
dirt. Dirt,
wow,
like everything's in the dirt.
that's very circle of life, like that. I'm assuming maybe you haven't. Have you seen The Lion King?
I have not seen The Lion King,
Okay, there's
but I have heard that there is a song where
Circle of Life.
a small animal's parent has just died, and he's been told to suck it up. It's just life, you little shit.
That's a pretty good synopsis of that song. I believe that song was called a Hakuna Matata. It means no worries, and not to say that he
Sounds
has
like
to suck
something.
it up, but he is able to get over it by saying, Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata.
Yeah.
Sounds like a word you'd hear on MasterChef all the time.
Oh, I'm sure they say that all the time on MasterChef. Actually, do you know what? I think that's where it originated, and Disney have some explaining to do because the creators of MasterChef were the geniuses who came up with that.
They are actually very litigious, the Disney organization.
Well, I was thinking about this just the other day because I saw there was an article somewhere about this person who was on Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood Strip, posing as the Fantastic Four, and these lawyers kept coming up to them and serving them with court orders, basically cease and desist, and then if they did it enough times, the 3 strikes, you're actually in court having to pay remunerations to them.
I have heard this story.
Okay.
I used to live right near where all those superheroes would gather in front of Gorman's Chinese Theatre, and there used to be like 7 Spider-Mans there, but I saw one particular lady spider woman, I guess she would be, that had a camel toe, like a hole punched in a wall.
Wow. Was she attractive at least?
No.
Oh, what a shame.
Well, in her defense, I was pretty distracted by her nether regions. I didn't particularly spend much time looking at her face. That area down there, it just looked like someone had punched a hole in something.
Oh.
It was big and large, and you could probably fit 12 or 13 tennis balls in there.
That's a lot. Puts those Thai women to shame. They can only do ping pong balls.
But I'm not sure on her propelling ability.
Well, no, I think mass in this case is outweighed by ability to shoot. Like, if you could fit 13 tennis balls up your vag, that's more impressive to me than being able to fit a couple of ping pong balls up there and then be able to shoot them some distance. Although,
What about accuracy? Do you care about accuracy?
accuracy is not important. I mean, it's a ping pong game. Basically, that's it. It's just a ping pong game.
So when I play ping pong, I like to put a lot of spin on the ball. Do those Thai ladies, can they put spin on the ball?
Well, do you know what? I don't know if there's any grip left, because normally it's all about the grip on the bat when you're putting spin on a ball and the way that you hit it. But I don't assume for one moment that there is any grip left inside the vaginas of those Thai women.
There may be.
Do you think?
Maybe they, well, on my ping pong bat paddle, sometimes I will resurface the surface area with fresh rubber.
Well, it is Thailand after all, and you can get anything done in Thailand, and it's quite cheap, I believe. Well, cheap for Australians anyway.
Fun fact: rubber comes from trees which grow in the dirt, in the earth, down ground.
That's a really good segue to come back to what we were talking about. But actually, I had a better segue, and that was we were talking very briefly before about the characters that walk around on the Sunset Strip, Hollywood Boulevard, and it made me think. These people are dressing up as superheroes, right? What if Stan Lee and all the Marvel people, what if they stole the ideas for these characters from actual superheroes that exist in other universes? And these superheroes come and visit our universe through the infinite abyss, through the ionosphere, the stratosphere, and then where we are right now. Getting back to this.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're standing on Sunset Boulevard looking at their imposters. Someone comes up to them saying, "I'm sorry, this is a licensed trademark product of the Disney Corporation. You've just been served." So they hand this to Superman. Is he therefore entitled to just fly off, and therefore is no limit to his ability to go through the sky, ionosphere, the stratosphere, and into the infinite abyss? Can he dodge that court appearance?
I think what you are trying to claim right now is that Superman might be some form of alien.
No,
and
not
I
at
will
all.
not listen to this rubbish.
All I'm trying to do suggest one way where the sky is not the limit. But this is
Superman
a
is a
big stretch.
man. It's right there in his name, man.
Okay, he takes on. No, okay. So why is he the only person who has an affliction when it comes to kryptonite?
That's not proven. We haven't put in kryptonite in front of every human.
But if it's
We're
if
talking
it's
science here now.
okay, well, if we're talking science,
You
then
need a
we have to
controlled study
we have to be
of.
thorough.
You need
You're
to
right.
work with placebos. You need to work with test patients. Maybe try out on a few rats first. Um, see how rats handle it, and then work your way up to humans.
And rats live in the ground
You
next
need
to the
to
earth.
document it. You need at least 7 or 8 people in lab coats to be there.
So
Very
do they have to
important.
be actual scientists or just lab coats?
I think as long as they're wearing a lab coat
Can
and
we be part of this?
they might need to be holding a clipboard.
Right, that sets it off. Why?
Um,
But what's the ratio of how many of them actually have to have glasses? Because you and I are great contenders. Not
we
that you can
both
see
wear
it,
glasses. I think we qualify as scientists right there.
but we don't have lab coats or clipboards.
I did own a lab coat briefly.
I have a stethoscope,
That's very sciencey.
but it makes me more. I know it's
Um,
well, it's a doctor rather than a scientist. But I think medicine is a science. I'm not exactly sure about that, but I think I could pass.
I'm well studied in the sciences. Like for example, I'm very knowledgeable in the invention of the helicopter. One of my key elements of scientific knowledge. I also use prescription medication sometimes. So I
So
have
you're an
science.
expert.
I have science within me.
Oh wow! But you are a product of science, is what you're saying.
Or without a doubt. I was born in a laboratory, and I was raised in a test tube. It was a pretty big test tube.
Wow.
I wasn't just tiny.
Sounds like that movie, The Bubble Boy.
I have not seen that movie,
Oh, another
but
movie.
I seem to remember there's a song in it where a kid's shoved in a bubble and his dad says, "Live with it. It's just life."
Maybe we're crossing movie references now. The
No,
Bubble
I don't
Boy.
think so.
It was actually one of those weird ones where what was his name? The Gyllenhaal, Jake Gyllenhaal.
Brother of Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Correct. Fantastic looking woman. Actually, we're having her on the show in a couple of weeks' time.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah,
delightful.
I booked it, and she's coming on the show. But Jake Gyllenhaal, star of other such films as Zodiac, and was also in that.
Donnie Darko.
Yeah, a
where
very
he played an evil bunny.
yeah, very dark. No, he didn't play the bunny. Frank the Bunny was someone else entirely.
Oh, I always thought of that movie as the bunny was the one real character, and the rest of the movie took place in the bunny's mind. Have I misinterpreted that?
No, perhaps you've just taken a different spin on the way that I interpreted that film. No, that can't be right because he was existing before, and then the bunny came and visited him, pulled him out of the way of the spiraling out of control jet engine, which should have killed him, and therefore had altered the time sphere, the passage of time. And so
Uh-huh.
the only way to get back was for him to basically die.
And he got to date Jenna Malone,
Yeah.
very attractive lady.
Well, she was back then.
I saw her.
I've seen photos of her since, and I apologize. I shouldn't be saying this because Jenna Malone's on in a couple of weeks as well.
I saw her.
But-
Yeah, go ahead.
But I think she was much cuter when she was a teenager.
That's pretty dirty. What you? So you're more attracted to underage girls, is what you're saying?
I always imagined that she was at least 17, 18 in that film.
In your imaginations, when you're imagining a teenage girl, you like to think that they're actually 17 or 18.
Okay, let's put this into context because at the time that I watched it, I was probably 14, maybe.
Uh-huh.
And here's what makes this even more special. On the bus to school every morning, there was a girl named Chloe. I can't remember what her last name was, and it's probably a good thing we don't mention it on the podcast.
Chloe Malone.
Chloe Malone will do just nicely. But Chloe was very attractive and kind of sort of looked like the character from Donnie Darko. And so I was always like, well, hey, she's really good looking, and they kind of look similar. And so my thing was I always wanted to like ask out this girl. And even after several failed attempts, I still didn't get to. So my escape was to watch Donnie Darko.
I saw Jenna Malone near my apartment in LA about 6 months ago when I lived there, and she was very attractive, but she was smoking a cigarette.
Ah, that comes back to, so if we put Jenna Malone on the Hindenburg with a cigarette,
She'd be a murderer
ah,
of thousands,
was it thousands?
hundreds, but no. But if you count their children and their children's children and the people that didn't get a chance to
This
exist,
just goes on exponentially now.
it's billions,
It's
really.
billions of people.
And one of those billions of people might have cured the common cold and we could stop sneezing.
Well, I'm actually pretty good this year. It was going through work that you should get your flu shot, and I declined getting the flu shot, and since have not had the flu. So I think it's all a big conspiracy. I'm not one of those stupid nutters that think, you shouldn't vaccinate your children and, you shouldn't put anything foreign in your body. It's just I really don't like needles, and I reckon I can fight the common cold.
You can just take it on, just fight it. You just get those the
Just
immune system and
lots
the
of
good
vitamin C.
bacteria, take it on those bad bacteria.
Do you know what my trick is? I eat lots of dirt, good nutrients in the soil.
I've heard this.
Mm.
So I guess what we are at the point of having to put an answer to this question.
Well, we kind of screwed ourselves over right from the start because we didn't set the little counter to actually show us how long we've been going for.
No, it's giving
counting.
us-
It's counting measures and
giving
not
measures.
actual seconds.
and I can't figure out how to change it, but it feels.
Well, no, we changed it last time.
I know we did, but
We need to change it so that seconds and minutes is the default.
But this feels like about the right amount of time.
Well, yeah, I
it
think,
might end up being
what is
way
it?
longer.
950 measures. We'll figure out what that is.
Yeah. Nicholas Day.
Let's wrap this up,
I
David Teak.
certainly know where I stand on this position. I think from our discussion, I have come to a definitive conclusion. But I'm curious to know where you are standing on: is sky the limit?
Whoa, that's a completely different question.
That is the only question.
Is sky the limit, or is the sky the limit?
Oh, the sky the limit. Is
Because
the sky the
I know a
limit?
girl named Sky, and do you know what? She is probably the limit as to how far I would not go. But in
That's,
the question that you asked,
not quite a 17-year-old Jenna Malone to you, this sky girl.
no, not at all. She's the limit. It's like, nah, it's fine. I won't go there. She's no Jenna Malone. But okay, in the answering the question, is the sky the limit? I did suggest that there could be a limit, and then I proposed one way around this, and that was that an extraterrestrial being or Superman could break through into our ionosphere, stratosphere, and come down and then be served with a court paper to say that they're impersonating someone they shouldn't be, therefore could fly out of our stratosphere, ionosphere, and into the infinite abyss, and the sky would not be the limit for them. I think this is a case-by-case basis.
Interesting. I think we've proven that everything comes from the dirt, and that is the genesis of all life.
A
And
circle
therefore,
of life.
the sky is far from the limit. The sky is not the
The
limit.
sky is definitely not the limit.
Wait,
No, we can't wait. We needed a definitive answer. The whole podcast was about coming up with the answer to this. If you still
Yes.
need more time, then we're gonna have to go to a penalty shootout.
I have misspoken.
Have you?
Because the dirt is within the sky, and therefore I don't think that. I think we need to look within rather than without, and therefore, no, the sky is not the limit. The limit is far smaller. Therefore, yes, the sky is the limit, but beyond the real limit.
I don't know if that if that
Dirt
sits
is
well.
dirt is the limit.
Dirt is the limit. Dirt is the beginning.
Well, I think we've answered this question.
We definitely have. The sky
Um,
is not the limit. Dirt is the limit. But dirt is also where you came from. So, okay.
Join us next time.
Yeah, join us next time on Yes or No.
Yes versus no.
Oh, yes versus no. I need to get this right. But thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week. See you next week, Dave.
See you next week, Nicholas. Wait, is this a weekly show? I thought we were going to be like bi-weekly.
Let's do it whenever we want.
Let's figure it out.